I'm supposed to click on something that says Chromecast. See if I can find that. I don't see anything that says Chromecast on this screen. So we'll have to wait for Akiva. Okay. So today is Aleph, today's Gimel Teves. Gimel Teves happens to be the yahrzeit of Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. The famous Reb Chaim Shmulevitz was Rosh Yeshiva Mir. First, I have to announce that today's broadcast is sponsored by the Balters, Ilu Nishmas Aaron Yoine ben Shimshon, whose yahrzeit is today in the Shmosai Tzura B'Tzura Chaim. Like I mentioned, it's also the yahrzeit of a guy Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, and the famous fight from Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. He was a very heartzig Yid, and he once went to the cave of Rachel, and he said, "Rachel, Mama Rachel, the Navi says, Meni koilech mibechi, stop crying." Chaim, referring to himself, Chaim was up, vein Mama vein, continue to cry until Klal Yisrael is redeemed from all their tzaras. Now, Chaim Shmulevitz, on a lighter note, was a nasher. He used to like to nash. And he said shir in the Beis Medrash, but he lived in the actual building of the Mir. The Mir itself had an apartment where Chaim Shmulevitz lived. And he had a son whose name was Rafal, who was a Rishiva of the Mir, and he had another son whose name was Rav Meir. And he was like a cute little kid. And one day, in the middle of a Chaim Shmulevitz saying shir, this little Meir barged into the Beis Medrash, and he tells his father, Abba, matzati uga, chati li, v'chati lecha, v'al tagid le'ima. So obviously, Mrs. Shmulevitz used to hide the cake so that Reb Chaim shouldn't be able to eat it, but Meir found it. It should be a militz yosher for all of Klal Yisrael. So let's see a fascinating series of stories in today's Gemara. We are on Daf Chav Daled Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom, the last 2 words underlined. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav, B'chol yoyim v'yoyim Baskol yoyches v'yimeres. Every day a Baskol comes out and says, Kol adam kula nizam b'shvil chanina b'ni. The whole world is only getting parnasa in the schus of my son Chanina. But the Chanina b'ni, dayoy, the kav charuven, me'erev Shabbos, l'erev Shabbos. He doesn't need anything. And I believe the Satmar says that the Sadik is the tzinar, is the pipe with which the hashpois come down to the world. As a matter of fact, the pasha that Taichin Bishvil means because of. But there are those who learn Bishvil Chanina through the pipeline, through the Chanina pipeline, not the Exxon pipeline, not the Keystone pipeline, but the Chanina B'ni pipeline. So the pipeline doesn't retain any of the product that it ships. It's just a conduit for it to pass through. And that's why Chanina doesn't have anything, because he's the conduit. And Ben Yehoyada adds that if the conduit starts to take some, he starts to dip in to the hashpos that it's transmitting, that'll mess it all up. Akiva, I was not able to figure it out. I did announce the yahrzeit, but I was not able to figure out how to do that. I'm a bigger bathroom than you think I am. So that's what the Yehoyada says.
Go to the YouTube person.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, well, you want that on run?
Go to where?
To the YouTube tab.
Go to the YouTube tab. So I have to unshare for 1 second, and then I can go to the YouTube tab. Okay.
See what it says? There's a little on the bottom.
Where's it about?
Over here.
Here?
That.
This here?
Yeah.
Play on TV.
Source. Tab. Oh, that's it. That's it.
I don't do anything?
Yeah.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming.
What does that mean, YouTube? Yeah. R2D2, they call it.
I think that's device. Yeah, here. I'll go back to you. That's it.
Okay, geweldig.
This one is the screen through the Or just have to move.
Well, I have to share my screen.
Doctor's gonna run away.
Okay, so we're good now?
It'll come back, yeah.
Everything's gewaltig. So Zog the Heilige Gemara. Zog the Heilige Gemara. The Yitav Leif once came to Rishon. And the Rishoner was known to live a very, very luxurious lifestyle. He lived the Malchus. And it was also known that he wore the fanciest leather boots, but they didn't have a sole to them. Because he wasn't living it to bask in the tivus. He felt that the Chassidus has to run like a Malchus. So once the Yitav Leif, who was a Friedrich, came to Rishon, and he sees the Rishoner dressed so fancy, living so fancy. So he tells the Rishoner, I don't understand. The Gemara says, so how is it that you, Rishoner Rebbe, are enjoying and basking in the luxuries that you're being toiled for them? So the Rishoner answered in true Satmar style, and the Rishoner answered that if you have a guy who doesn't have two pennies to rub together, and he doesn't have food, and he doesn't have a house, and he doesn't have a car, and he can't afford clothing, so when he's being toiled for somebody else, parnasa, what are his asagas? Hashem, give him that he should have enough that he should be able to pay the rent before he gets evicted, right? That's already that's a hear by him. The says no. If you live big, then when you think for others, you think big. And there's a famous story with a wealthy guy who came to the Satmar Rebbe, and he didn't live fancy. He believed in living the tzimtzum. So the Satmar Rebbe told him, Yankel, your beckature is a little bit worn. Tomorrow, next Shabbos, I expect to see you in a brand new beckature. He says, Rebbe, what do I need it for? This is fine. You better wear a new beckature next Shabbos. So next Shabbos, and it better be silk. So next Shabbos, he comes with a gorgeous new silk beckature, maybe a little bit of strakas here and there, a little velvet, And he says, good. So he shows the Rebbe, says, look, Zaygit, but look at your shtramal. It looks like a cross between a jelly donut and a pancake. You got to get yourself one of those double-decker, triple-decker shtramal with the spikes on top. I want one with a pigeon guard on top. I want a full-blown with like 2 or 3 gray hairs in them, right? I want a real chashav shtramal. Rebbe, die weiß es nicht von mir. Der shtramal geht, es fällt nicht aus. No, you better have that shtramal next week. Showing the next week he comes with he grew at 12 inches. Like Mr. Rogers says, I think I'll grow 12 inches today. He put on that shtramal, he's already 12 inches taller. He was unbelievable. Showing the next week he says, the Rebbe asked me, Yankel, who's for a car fusti? He says, who's car? I have an old beaten up Chevy. This felt the hose of car. It's a gun, it's a gun, and Williams, anyway, it's a hack to karach, they will bank into you. 9-9. Die bist a Chashai next Woche darfst kommen bis mit a neue Cadillac. She says, Rebbe, Cadillac. I'm embarrassed about. No, ich heiß das nicht. And then next week he says, Yankel, I saw your house. You have 3 bedrooms, like a train. You go from one bedroom to the next. I want you to get a nice, big, wide house with a corridor and beautiful little dining room. Says, to get that my next Shabbos is a little difficult. I need a little bit of time. So it's fine. So a year later, he's in this gorgeous new mansion. At that time, his Cadillac's already a year old. He's about to swap it out for the new one with his triple-decker Strammel, with his gorgeous beckature. He says, but tell me why? Why was it necessary? I feel so uncomfortable over here. So the Rebbe says, I'll tell you why. Because when they come to you for tzedakah, that a Hingaman needs a car, you driving a caddy, maybe you'll forget him chachik a Chevy. You won't say, for me, this kid, and if you have a big, beautiful beckature, before you open it, if they raise money for somebody, you'll forget him. He should have a nice, at least a regular new beckature. And if they need to raise money, you have a strammel, you won't say, such a fat strammel, look at my strammel. No, you'll forget him a little more. So I want you to live large. You know why? Because if you live large, you'll give large. And that is the Satmar way. Zok Tehillah Gemara. Zok Tehillah Gemara. Have a regila, the Visui, they were so poor. If they had a kav charuvim erev Shabbos, that means they didn't have wheat, they didn't have flour, they couldn't bake challah, they didn't have food for Shabbos. So his wife was embarrassed. Like she's the only one who doesn't have challah. Like it's embarrassing. You walk by a Jewish house, you walk into a Jewish house, you smell the delicious Shabbos food, her house there's no food to smell. So the visu have a regular devisu lemechma tanura kalmal the chapsa. Even though she didn't have anything to bake, she would heat up her oven every Erev Shabbos, the shadya akterasa, and she would put some type of scent. I think you can buy a special scent that smells like challah, a challah scent. So that mishum kisufa, so that people, walking by should think she's baking. They shouldn't realize that she doesn't even have food to bake for Shabbos. So that's what she did. Bishta, she had a bad neighbor. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be spelled Bishta or if it's supposed to be spelled Beyut Tuf Shin. I'm not sure. But the nusach that we have here in our Gemara is Bishta. So she had a nasty neighbor. Amra, she said, Michti. Let's think about this for a second. I know they don't have any money and they don't have any food for Shabbos. Yodana the last midi. My kulahai, what's the big smell? It doesn't make sense. There's nothing cooking there. Where's the smell coming from? So you would think if she was a nice lady, she would have come over with food. No, she just wanted to humiliate this woman. She came and she knocked on the door. So she said, oy vey, when I answer the door, they're going to see that my oven is empty. I'm embarrassed. So Ichsefa, she got terribly embarrassed. But Ayla Li'indruna, she went into her back room, her rear room, into her pantry. And you know what happened? Is Avad Lanisa. It seems like this woman didn't wait for anybody to answer the door. She barged in. And this happened. Is Avad Lanisa, the Chazer L'Tanura Malay Lachma. The oven was full of bread that was baking, and there was another batch, the Agna Molilisha, and a pan full of dough, prepared challah, ready to go in on the next batch. Amr Law. So she barged into the house. The owner of the house is not there. She's in the back room. So she's Planisa. So she didn't even know her neighbor's first name. Planisa. In other words, Hernor, Rebbitzin. I see masa. Bring one of those matzah shovels to take the bread out of the oven so it shouldn't burn. Your bread is burning. Amr La. So from the back room, she says, of course. Af ano lahachi ayo. Lahachi ayo. That's why I went to the back room to get that keli to be able to take the bread out of the oven. And Rashi says she wasn't lying. That's exactly what she went for. Because she lived in the household of Rav Chanina ben Doisa. So she knew that Nisan was going to happen. So the moment the woman knocked on the door, she knew Hashem was going to make that happen, that her oven should get full. So she ran to the back room to get it. So Shitaka was not lying. Because Vice the Chois, they were Tzufriden, living Vanias. But the busha was already something that was too much for her. That's what I would assume. So Rashi says that she actually, I'm not sure, is it? I thought it was Rashi. Rashi says that she knew, the Gemara says she knew what it was for. She knew it was going to happen. So that's what she wanted. Tan afi lavi narda, afi lavi murda. She also wanted to get that keli that you take the bread out with. I don't know the English name for it, but in Latin it's called a pala. Okay, Zog to Gemara. Because she was used to these things happening. That was the norm in her house. Hoisa Amrlei the Visu, his wife would tell him, his wife would, I guess, from time to time tell him, Ad Emas Nazel v'nitztar kulahai. How long are we going to suffer? How long are we going to suffer this way? Amr Allah, so he asked her, my dear wife, what would you like, my Navi, what would you like me to do? Well, I don't know, you get a job? But what would you like me to do? So that wasn't even an option because he was sitting on learning Torah B'dachas. So she said, maybe boy rachmi. So the Bach sticks in Amr Allah, she responded to him, boy rachmi, maybe daven to the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Neis V'lach Midi, that you should get something, you should have some sustenance. So he listened to his wife, boy rachmi, and what happened was Yotza came in pieces yad, a hand came out from Shemayim and delivered to them the Yahavale Chad Kaira the Psoira the Dahava. It gave him a leg of a table that was made out of gold. She saw in a dream, Asidi Tzadiki, eventually the Tzadikim are going to be sitting at the restaurant, I'll be sitting in the dining room, in the cafeteria of Gan Eden. The Achli Apsoira, the Dahava, the Isle Klaskar. Everybody was sitting on tables, or round tables that had 3 legs. But he told his wife, I dreamt that you're sitting on Chelas Apsoira, the tray carry. Your table only had 3 legs because one of the legs you got delivered to you here. I'm sorry? Everybody had 3, she only had 2. So he didn't say the table was falling over. He just said that it was standing on 2 legs. Exactly how that works, I don't know. And the Mefarshim tell us that the 3 legs are referring to the 3 mudim of Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasadim. And the true schar of Gemilas Chasadim is when you're going with Chasadim bedachlos, when you don't have. Somebody who's a billionaire is doing Gemilas Chasadim, it's a beautiful mitzvah. But it doesn't come to someone who's in poverty and is sharing the little that he has. So she was missing the leg of a Gemilas Chasadim because she wasn't any longer going to be doing it in Mesiras Nefesh. She now had a golden leg. Zog to Gemara. So Amar Lei, she said, Nichalach. Amar Lei, she told him, Nichalach could be it changes. If you look at the Daled, could be she said it to him. He said there. Let me see what it says in the Vav. It doesn't say. Okay. So he says, are you happy? Amar Lei, she told him, Nichalach, the Mechal Achli Kula Alma Absar the Mishlam. Will you be happy if everybody else is eating on a nice, big, full table and we're sitting on a table that's missing a leg? She told him, what should we do? You have to daven that Hashem should take it away. They davened to the Reborn Shalom, and they took it away. Tana, we learned, God the second nace that the golden leg was taken away was in fact a greater nace than the first nace that they got the leg. The Gemiri we know, the Mev Yahavi Mishkol Lo Shakli. The Reborn Shalom gives, but the Reborn Shalom doesn't take away. Rashi says, Mishkol Lo Shakli Basar the Yahavi. And we say multiple times a day in Ashrei, Ritzoyin Yerev Yasa, Veshavosam Yishma V'Yoshiyim. And Mefarshim teach us that it means sometimes a person's not supposed to have something, and it's not even good for him to have something, but he doesn't realize it. We're always saying we want more. Sometimes what we want is not good for us. But when the tzaddik asks for it, Hashem gives it him anyway, because it says Ritzoyin Yerev Yasa. After the tzaddik gets it, he realizes, you know what, this was not good for me. So now he wants to take it away. So it says, "Ve'ashavosam yishma v'yashiyim." The Reborn Shalom hears the cries and the screams of the tzaddik and saves them from what they took that they shouldn't have taken. So the question is, when they were getting it, all they needed to do was express a ritzon yirei of yasa. But to undo the nace, there had to be a ve'ashavosam yishma v'yashiyim at the scream. Why? For this reason, the me'av yavi Hashem gives very easily, but mishkol shakli he doesn't take back so fast.
That's one of the most amazing things. The 2 most amazing things I read in the Moshe Reichman book. He mixed up 2 Mashalachim. One Mashalach was building a wing, and the other Mashalach was building, he was collecting for himself. And by mistake, he gave the Mashalach that was collecting for himself the check that was building, that was supposed to be given to the other.
He gave the wingman the other check.
Wingman the other check. No, he didn't. And give
a small check, and the other guy.
So the fellow comes to me and says, Mr. Reichman, I have a check here for $150,000. I don't think that was the check that you meant for me. He looks at the check and he sees that this was the check for the man that was building the wing. He says, you know what? Once I give it, I don't take it back.
Wow. Let me add them. They say another pshat of the Jewish in this Gemara. Me'av Yahavi, Hashem gives very generously. Mishkol Shakli, he doesn't measure what he gives. He gives berafchis. He doesn't measure it out, meter it out. So we should also be zoichet to have without measurements, just berafchis. Okay. Zok to Gemara. Chad be'shemshei, one Erev Shabbos, chazir lebarte davas atziva. He saw that his daughter was sad. Amrla, biti, lamaya atziva. So why are you so upset? Amrla, she said, and could be she was married, she had her own house. She said, Kli shal chaymetz nischalafli b'chlich shal shem. By mistake, instead of filling up the nearest with oil, I put in chaymetz. Now, the question is, we must have been on Shabbos, so she could no longer change it. So Rashi says, if you look at what happened, is the money of the challah, the chli sheyesh by chaymetz So I filled up the ner with chometz, and it's going to go out. I don't understand the Metzias. The Metzias is, how did it light in the first place? Because Rashi says, I'm worried it's going to go out. So it could be there was some leftover oil in it. And when you put chometz in to raise the level, there was still a little bit of oil on top. But I'm afraid that once the oil gets used up, it's going to go out, and I'm not going to have light Friday night. It locked in many oil Shabbos, and now it's too late. I can't change it anymore. Omer labiti, what's the difference? Oil, vinegar, it's all the same. Misha Omer l'shemen v'yidloi, hu yomer l'chometz v'yidloi. The same reborn Shloim that made the scientific properties of oil that they should light, Hashem will do that to the chometz. And that's exactly what happened. By Avdullah, they already brought a new or. Why couldn't they just let it stay for Avdullah? So Rashi says, if you look at the first skinny line, Hidlik mimeni ner achar lihenaispay. The hano that you have from the Avdullah to make a boyer reish, for that they wanted to use not ner shalneis. The ner shal ma'asenisim kiba, and they put out the ner of ma'asenisim keichid of Rabbi Yehuda, like we learned from Rabbi Yehuda yesterday. The Chalad Avasmida, yesterday on the base, we learned that he said no one should buy the sand that became flour because it's shalnais.
So the
That's what they
bread that
want
was
to
in
do.
the oven also was when it goes into the garden?
I'm not sure how that worked. I don't know. It's a good art. I don't know. Okay, so that's the matzah. So basically, what Chadina Medesa said is the reborn Shalom runs the world. Everything's reborn Shalom. So reborn Shalom can make anything happen. So this is a method that we're all familiar with, that it says in Nefesh HaChaim, Chaim Volosner said, this is a method, it's a strategy, it's a tactic that's boduk emunusa that it works. That is, if a person has in mind, ein oid milvadoi, nothing will be able to impact them. And the legend has it is that when the Brisker was being taken out, was escaping from Europe, wherever he went through a checkpoint, he just had kavana ein oid milvadoi, and they didn't have any tfisa.
And see, you try that or you try answers.
Oh, by the way, they just changed the law that you don't have to fill out the arrive can before you get there. You're allowed to fill it out when you get there. You don't have to fill it out. When you get there, the border has to ask you the questions and you have a right to tell them the answers then. You don't have to fill it out.
When did they change that? Because I just arrived last night.
Saying that it's not fair to people. Many people don't have smartphones. Many people don't have data. How you talking? So now you could just come and answer by the border. There's also a punitive punishment that if you didn't do it, you automatically have to get 2 weeks quarantine, which is crazy. It was punitive. They move out to that as well.
Yeah. By the way,
Yes.
I arrived last night and they asked me for
So
the
you're
Rive
talking
Canap.
to us?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. What are you saying?
I arrived last night and they asked me for the Rive Canap.
One second. Duvi arrived last night and,
They asked me for the Rive Canap.
right?
And they said, well, we did it. We did it on the road about an hour ago. I said, well, I don't see it in the system. And then like a minute later, it popped up in the system. And but she asked for it. And after all that, we have the ArriveCan app, we have the documentation, we have our PCR tests, we have everything. And she goes, and I see her digging into a box, pulling out some COVID test. She goes, you've been randomly selected to take a COVID test.
I'm sure they're going to have a report to the landfill in Ontario that 30% of the landfill is full of these tests. Zok the Gemara, Kavaltik. Easy. He had goats. He had goats. The question is, how did he have goats? If he was so poor, how did he have goats? The Gemara is going to explain. The neighbors were telling him, "Come Amsterdam. They're causing damage in the neighborhood. They're eating things. They're causing problems." Rashi's Ksadois. It's damaging the fields. Amar, he said, if these goats are causing damage, they should be eaten by bears. But if they're not doing damage, then tonight when they come in from the field, every one of these goats will bring a bear back on their horns with them tonight. That evening, all the goats came in triumphantly with a big bear on their horns. So clearly, it was just like Cuomo tried to blame the pandemic on the Jews when really it had nothing to do with the goats. It had nothing to do with the goats. Havale ahu shivivasa the kabanya besa. He had a neighbor that was building a house, and when she saw the moifsim of her Chanina, she figured, you know what? I need a moifis. Maybe I can dial a moifis. I can call Kupa to air and I can press 1 or press 2 or press 3. So I'll go to Reb Chanina ben Yosy. Let's see what I can do with my moifis. Unfortunately, the two outside walls were 20 feet apart and the beams were 18 feet apart. There's a gap. How are you going to build a house? Also, she came to him. You see, he was also a structural engineer. She told him, Banisi Baisi, I built a house, my house, but my beams don't extend long enough to rest on the two outer walls. Amrla Mashim, what is your name? Amrla Iku, my name is Iku. Amar, he said, Iku Nimtu Kishurayach. Iku, your beams should stretch. Tana, we learned, they didn't just stretch so that should be enough. It stretched so they were able to cantilever out an amma on either side, I guess, to show Klor that it was a nice. But yes, there are those who learned that the beam didn't stretch. Snifin also pieces connected to them and they bonded, which created an extension. Tanya, we learned. I actually saw the house. It was a funny house because you would see that the beam stuck out past the house. And we knew it was from the Nes of Reb Chanina ben Yosy. This is the house that Reb Chanina ben Yosy beamed. He beamed it up with his tefillah. The moifus disappears. I hear, yeah. You hear. Okay, I hope our house has insurance. Reb Chanina, how did he have goats? He didn't have food. How did he have goats? He was ani. Anyway, the Chacham said, "And you're not supposed to raise Bemedaka in Yisrael because they steal, and you're not supposed to have them." So tomorrow, there's a whole story behind it. Someone passed the house of Reb Chanina ben Yosy, and he must have lost there some chickens. He left them there. Maybe he left them there for tzedakah, but he left Tanagolim there. It doesn't say why he left them there, but whatever the case is, he definitely didn't want to take it. His wife found it. You raise him out and then you bring him in.
All the goats, all the components that are brought from
Yeah, you have to import it. I know it's not the Trump way.
I understand, but you import it to when you need
But they're not grazing there. You bring it in. It's just in time shipping. You bring it in for a couple of days, 4 days.
A couple of days, whatever carbon was shafted a couple of days ago, it was already in Chutzlar.
Yeah. They only had they had about a 4-day supply.
A 4-day supply of carbon.
At least about a carbon ton. They had a 4-day supply of carbon. So let's see what happened over here. Vamali told her, she thought, oh, I found some food now. He said, no. I'll totally leave me saying, you know what, eat their eggs. You have to save them and give them back to the original owner. The Hirbu Beitzim, but there was a lot of eggs. There's a lot of chickens. It was getting a little bit tight to your house because I don't know what came first, a chicken or an egg, but there were so many chickens and so many eggs. So what did he do? Umarchon. He sold all these chickens because it wouldn't be properly sustained until the owner came back. The Kana but the name Eezim, and he bought Eezim. I guess Eezim are easier to raise and to maintain for the bailam. So once upon a time, the person who lost the Tanagolim passed by Reb Chanina ben Yossy's house. And he told his friend, this is where I put my Tanagolim. Somewhere Reb Chanina was sitting on the porch, so he heard a guy say it. Amar loy, yesh lach bahen simin. Do you have a simin in the Tanagolim? Amar loy hein. Nosan le Simon. So he got the Simon, but not le Eezim. Vanina gave this person all of the goats because they all were the products of the chickens that he had left here. The hein izu the isu doivi b'kanai. It's those goats that they weren't the doisa goats. He was busy with them, but he didn't have any benefit from them. He also was quite tight. Avad milsa, he did a kazas adam, and after you do a kazas adam, after you give blood, you need to eat something because you're weak. He didn't even have anything to eat. So you know what he did? Shalak bar the tuma. He took a clove of garlic, it says. He took a clove of garlic, and he put it into his mouth. Chalash libe, that weakened him very much. V'nim, and he fell asleep. Also, the Rabban wanted to say, "Oh, he fainted. What's wrong with you?" Chazu, he saw the kabachi. He was crying. V'chayich, and he laughed. And v'nofak tutzitza the nura me'apusa, and a bolt, a flash of fire went out of his forehead. What's going on over there? He asked him when he woke up, my time why did you cry and then you laughed? When I was sleeping there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was sitting with me. And I told him, until when am I going to suffer so much in this world? Hashem told me, after the Misyaltis B'Shat the Mazoini. Would you like me to erase your visit to this world and push reset and have you start over again? Maybe you'll be born into a time where food is more plentiful and you won't have to suffer so much. Amri, Lakamei, Kulahai, Be'afshir, to do such a big thing and restart my whole process. And I don't even know for sure that it's going to help. I might end up in an equal situation of poverty, or maybe even worse. Amrlei, so Rabbi Lazar asked the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Chayat Tvei or the Chayana? Did most of my life pass already, or am I still going to be living more than I am old right now? So he wants to know how much more he's going to live. Rashi says, or not. So Hashem said the chayis. No, you've already lived most of your life. Behind the kabachi, and that's why he cried. Rashi says, and that he laughed is mishum yud gimel narvosa lirchot. So we'll see in a minute what that means. So Hashem said you're still going to live. So your most of your life is over. And the Mefarshim say that what he was asking is, it says once a person lives most of his life without chet, he's muftach that he's not going to do any more chetayim. So he said, I withstood the nesoyin of oni so long, I think I'll be okay. Amar l'chayis. So Amar l'kamei im kain loy ba'ina. Amar li b'hai agra the amar. So im kain loy ba'ina. I don't want you to reverse the world and turn and start over. Amar li b'hai agra. Hashem told me with that schar the amar loy ba'ina. Yahivna lach la'alma la'asi. I'm going to give you in Olam Haba place in Arvasa the Mishcha Parsamai Dachyoin Keprasvedikus. I'm going to give you 13 rivers of pure, clean oil of a parsamai, like Narpras and Harchideka. The Ma'angaspu, and you'll be able to enjoy them. Amila Kamei. So I told him back, Hi Busuloi, that's all I'm going to get. Amuli. If I give you more, I'm not going to have anything left to give other people. You can't take anything away. Amrlei, I don't understand. The anam migavra the leslei beina. Am I asking from somebody who doesn't have? I'm asking from you, Rabbi Shalom. You're kol yochel. How could you tell me if you give me more, you're not going to have for somebody else? So what happened was mochyon baskutla aposoi. They wrapped me on my forehead. Rashi says they wrapped me on my forehead. That was the flash that came out of his head. So they gave it a snap on his forehead, and the snap on his forehead caused that flash of electricity to come out of his head. the Gemara tells us that it was Rashi tells us that it was what my father told Zisa petch. It wasn't a punishment petch. It was like a gletala from Dakala. That's right.
What do you mean that have plus? The
I love that. Oh, from Fisher, yeah.
What do you mean that he was going to give him all those rivers and he was going to be able to enjoy it? He was going to give him a boat too? Like what does that whole mean?
I don't know. I don't know.
A cottage.
I'm not sure what the meaning of the rivers of the parsimony. It wasn't water. It was beautiful oil. V'amarli Elazar Bagiri. Bachiri. He says Elazar Bagiri Bachiri. So that was a lotion of endearment. Igru Bachiri Klemer Hakisi Bechitzi Lechedva Ba'alma Amarki. It was a love tap. It wasn't to punish him. Going back to the stories of these Gedolim who made Taanis and they weren't able to accomplish it. They told him, you should be ashamed of yourself because other Rabbanim, they were guys in their work. You're right. I'm not I'm just me. How about they told him the next day, why don't you bring Rabbi Shua ben Levi, bring in your competition, the Nechandait, together we'll daven. If you're the Tavit Sibura Libayu, Dasimitra, maybe we'll be able to together Poyalois to bring rain. Bon Rachmi, they davened Veloyasimitra, and it didn't work. Amalahu, so he asked them, Michalahu, Shiyave Mata Bishvilenu. He told the Tzibur, would you be happy if the rain only came because of us, not because of your contribution? Zok to Gemara. Yeah, no problem. Just bring the rain. Amar. So he said, Rikia, dear heaven, Kasi Panecha, cover over your face. In other words, the heaven should be clouded over. Lo Yichsi. It didn't work. Amar, Kama Azan Pnei Rikia. Look how chutzpahdik the Pnei Rikia is that it's refusing to give water to the tzibur. It's not embarrassed to the tzibur. And then Ichsiv Asamitra, that extra push caused it that they should be raised. Levi goes to Taanis of Asamitra, same issue. Amal the fun of everybody Shalaylam. Alisa v'yishafta b'moraim, you're up there in your ivory tower. Ve'ina tamaracham al b'necha, and you're not concerned. For you, everything's good. You're not worried about us. The shtickle chutzpahdik, what Levi said. Asamitra, but the Itla Levi became crippled. And the Gemara says, we're going to see soon. A person shouldn't be chutzpahdik to the Reborn Shloim. Adam Gadol Hatiach Dvaram Klapi Maila, who was Levi, the Itlani became crippled, Umani Levi. In fact, the Gemara, was it the fact that he was aggressive with the Reborn Shloim? I thought it's because he was doing some acrobatic activities that were out of his range, and he snapped something. But Levi Achva Kedah Kamid Rebbe, he wanted to demonstrate Kedah, which is you stand on your feet and you are able to bend all the way over and lean on your thumbs. You have to be able to touch your toes to do this. And it was a very difficult thing. And in demonstrating that, the Itla became a cripple. So tomorrow, had he not been a Tiach Klapi Maila, then he wouldn't have been injured during his difficult demonstration. He would have been nitzel. But since he was vulnerable because he was a Tiach Dvaram Klapi Maila, he got injured during this demonstration. He heard clouds talking to each other. We're loaded up with water. What?
What should he have said? Please?
We've had so many examples. We've had so many examples of different things that different Gedolim said that worked. He's the one who says, you're sitting in your ivory tower and you're not worried about us. It's a simple this one.
It wasn't a cynical.
Of course.
One from the Reborn Shloim.
But I guess on Levi's Madrega. We got to move because it's a quarter to 7 and we only are halfway done. So I'm sorry, I skipped. So he said, so he heard the cloud saying we're going to dump rain in Amun Moy. When you gave Torah, there you wanted to give your Torah to everybody. Nobody wants it. We took it. The Achshav Atanois and Lahem Matar, now you're giving them the rain. They didn't want the Torah, they don't need the rain. Shaduacha, unload the water by the Eden. Shaduaduch, that's exactly what happened. Dorish Reb Chia Bar Lulaini. My dechsiv. Tzadik hatomar yivra. A tzadik will grow like a tomar, which is flexible and soft. Ke'eres bavon yiska, like a cedar, which is rock solid. Im noimar tomar, loma noimar eres. Im noimar eres, loma noimar tomar. Ilu noimar tomar, veloy noimar eres. If it don't hit tomar, but you see oimer ma tomar, just like a tomar tree, a date tree, a palm tree. Ein gizoy machlef. It does not heal. It doesn't grow. It doesn't grow. If it gets cut, it doesn't regrow.
We're not talking about the tree. We're talking about the date.
No, we're talking about the date tree.
No, it says katomar.
Tamar, you could refer to a date tree as a tamar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And gizema av tzadik chas v'shalom. And gizem achlef. So we're comparing it to a tzaddik, and we don't want a tzaddik. Rashi's ein loy zecher. He won't be machal. Rashi means he won't stand up and chis amazim. The kachnemer eres is that an eres does rejuvenate. Ilam eres, v'lemer tamar. I used to remember my eres ein loy seperes, and the eres doesn't give out fruit. Av tzadik chas v'shalom ein loy seperes. And Rashi means he won't have schar loss of lovely. The kachnemer tamar, the nemer eres. Practically more of the eres gives a machlef. Are you telling me that if you chop down an eres tree, a cedar tree, it's going to grow? But Tanya, if you buy a tree from your friend to cut because you need its wood, don't cut it all the way to the ground. Leave at least a tevach so that it could regrow. The koitzets b'sedana shikma, and you can also cut a sedana shikma, which is already an old shikma tree, shnei tvachim. There you have to leave 2 tvachim so that it can regrow. The besulas shikma, if it's a brand new shikma that was never trimmed before, shloishes tvachim, you leave 3 tvachim. Bekonim u'lekfanim, or reeds and vines, mina pekak u'maila, from the lower knot. I'm not sure exactly what that is. B'dekolim u'varozim, but by a decal tree and an eres, choifer lamata u'mashrish, you could uproot the whole tree. So how could you say that a cedar tree is gizeh machlef? This brisa indicates that it's not gizeh machlef. There are many types, there are many species of cedar trees, like kind tree tolos, there's bushes, there's trees, right? There's a whole list of items in Pasuk. And we learned that there's 10 species of eres, some of them rejuvenate, some of them don't. He was going with all of 13 Taanis. It still didn't work. So at the end of the last Taanis, his chilu atibur lotzis, they're all going to go home. I mean, we're done. There's nothing we can do anymore. Amar lahem. So he asked them, before you go home, I just want to ask you a question. Takantem kvarim la'atzmachem? Did you prepare yourself graves because you're all going to be dropping dead because you have no food, there's a hunger. You wanted to get them this earth. So go kolom b'bchia. That prompted them to all start crying. And that crying broke Shemayim, Shai Dmois, Kil, the Shlobois, the Yordu Geshavim. Shemai Rabbi Lezer, she heard the Fnei table. He went to Daven for the Amid. V'amar Esem Barba Brachas. He said the 24 Brachas against with a tiny. Lo Nena. Yord Rabbi Kiva Achrav. Then Rabbi Kiva went. V'amar Avinu Malkeinu, Ein Lonu Melech Elata, Avinu Malkeinu, Lamancha Rachem Aleinu, the Yordu Geshavim. And he did rain. Have a Maranini Rabbana. So they were making fun of Shtickle that Rabbi Eliezer couldn't be Pailois, Rabbi Kiva was Pailois. Yotzis the Baskel of Amra. It's not because Rabbi Kiva was greater than Rabbi Eliezer that he was able to bring rain. So before you go, what? Are you telling me Rabbi Eliezer wasn't a Mavra Midoiso? What it means is Rabbi Eliezer wasn't so B'anias, and Rabbi Kiva was major B'anias. Rabbi Kiva was Makayim Kol Terakula through great nisyonos. Oh, it wasn't Anias. It wasn't Anias. It's brought down that Rabbi Kiva had a natural tendency not to do avodas Hashem. His nature of Hashem was not to do avodas Hashem. He had to work on himself very, very hard to do avodas Hashem. Mashenkin, Rabbi Eliezer, he was a goody naturally. Goodness came to him naturally, and therefore he didn't have such a schar of being marvel avodas. Tanarban, Admasa Yuach Geshamim Yordim Batiba Poshki B'Tanisam. How much does it have to rain that we could stop the fast because we had the Yeshua? So tomorrow, Kamole Berach HaMechresha, like the Rashi, it's the keli with which they thresh with, and it goes along the ground. So Rashi, what it means is, if the entire groove or ditch that the plow makes is full of water, that's enough water. You could stop that. Different mayor. If it's very dry land, then tefach. It has to be able to absorb down into the soil a tefach. A tefach down has to be moist already. The bathing is if it's a property that has a little bit of moisture in it, so then that same amount of rain will penetrate tvachayim. And ba'avuda, if it's a worked land, it's plowed and it's moist, then shloisha tvachim, that same amount of rain will actually penetrate 3 tvachim down. Tanya B'Shimon ben Elazar Eimer, ein lach tefach milamayla shein teim yoytza l'krasa shloisha tvachim. If it rains 1 tefach from above, so if the rain penetrates from above a tefach, we know that the tahaim is coming up 3 tvachim. Now the tahaim is very far away. It's not coming all the way up. But when it comes up even 3 tvachim way down there, it does add to the moisture content closer to the surface. In fact, tomorrow about tiny tvachim, we learned that it comes up 2 tvachim, not 1. So tomorrow l'kasha kam b'avuda kam bejen avuda. Why ein avuda? In order for a tefach of water to absorb above, it's more water, and that's that amount of water that comes up from the bottom. But if it's ein avuda, then then 1 tefach of water from above, in order for it to penetrate a tefach in very dry soil, that's more water, and therefore it's met with 3 tefachim of water from the top. When they do the nisach hamayim on sukkahs, which is of course ma'ir rachim that we should have rain, tahaim oimer lechaveiroi, the tahaim speaks to his friend, and it says Abba memecha, flow your water up. Koil shnei reim ani shemeya. I hear the 2 friends, the 2 waters, I hear them talking. In other words, they're discussing already that they're going to be nisach hamayim v'nisach. I'm sorry, koil shnei reim nisach hamayim v'nisach hayayim. So the time says, I hear the nisach happening. It's time for us to wake up and to start bringing water. Zok to Gemara weiter. Shenemar says tahaim el tahaim kairei lekoil shnei. The tahaim calls at another time, and it's calling to the sound of the nesachim. Amar Rabbi Levi Chazali Hai Ridaya. I saw the malach that's in charge of bringing the water. Dami leigla upirsos l'sayim. He looks like a calf that has a split lip. The kaiman, it stands bein tahaim tasal tahaim ilah. So if you look out at the horizon over a body of water where the sky meets the ocean, that's where you see it stand. He tells the upper tahaim, let it flow down, let it rain down. Your water should flow up. So the question is, at what point, how early does the water have to come, does the issue have to come, that you can cancel the times? If they were fasting, if the rain came before Netzachama, lo yashlimu, they shouldn't do the fast. La'achar Netzachama yashlimu, they should finish the fast. They were mayor. Which are the 2 shittas mentioned in our Mishnah. Rabbi Yosy mentions a 3rd shitta that's not in our Mishnah. If it started raining before 9 hours in the day, they shouldn't fast. Why is this is all totally when people normally eat their meal? The malachim eat their meal by teshoyos. His fast isn't considered a fast until the 9th hour of the day, because anyway he doesn't eat earlier than that. In other words, Achav was spared a certain oynish because he was machni himself to their one son. If you didn't see what? It's 5-2, right? A couple more, very fast. If you didn't see you can go. If you didn't see he was going to Taanis. They figured they'll finish. Amalei, Reb Ami, Kodim Chatzois, the Achah Chatzois, Chaninu, I told Chatzois, not in Netzachama. So therefore, you shouldn't finish it. Shmuel HaKodim goes to Tanisa, B'yoid Lam Gesham Kodim Netzachama, Kesfurin Ha'am Loimar, Shavach Shal Sibur. They thought, it must be because we're good that the rain came. Amalem Emshol Lachem Moshel. I'll give you a moshel. Just don't pat yourself on the back. Lamad Avadoima, Levit Shavakish Pras Mi Rabbi. And David wants his Adam to give him something. Amalem, the Adam says, you know what, Tnula, give it to him, just give him what he wants. I don't have patience, I don't want to listen to him. So it's not that Hashem loves you, you're pilos, it's because Hashem is sick of you. Shuv Shmuel HaKatan, and he did it because he wanted them to be choshev b'tshuva more. Shuv Shmuel HaKatan goes to Tanis of Yodam Geshamim. Lachash Shkiyas Achama, it rained after Shkiyas Achama. They also thought it's because they did tshuva. It's not a shvach. Here they got to rain mamish at the last second. Don't give it to him right away. Let him suffer before they get it. Again, he was trying to show that it wasn't shvach. So when is it a shvach and a tzibur? If the rain comes early, you're saying it's Hashem saying bug off. If the rain's coming late, it's because Hashem wants to make a suffer. So what is called shvach and tzibur? When could we say that we take a poil dois and there's a ace rotten? Amar mashav ruach v'noshav zika. At the moment the shlich tzibur says mashav ruach and the wind blows, Amar morid geshem, and then it starts to rain. Vasamitra, that's a good sign. Okay, let's stop here. Go ahead.
Because it's taking